fakes it out of the backfield. Has some daylight. Hurdles to the end zone. In for the score, and he took a lick from Miles Jack, but he hung on.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. Let's talk about some things that have happened just today in the NFL. And the first thing that happened this morning was that J.J. Watt was released from the Texans. Why is this important? It's kind of a shocker, right? Like, a lot of people thought that they would trade him. A lot of people thought that they would do away with him. It's not necessarily a surprise that J.J. Watt will be playing for a different team in 2021. The biggest surprise is how that happened, right? The fact that he has been released and that he is free to sign with any team that he wants to, right? It was a mutual kind of parting of ways as it was described. To me, it means this. What does it mean for the Bengals? Obviously, this is a Bengals channel. If you're listening now, please hit that subscribe button. It's over here. We truly appreciate that. Feel free to subscribe. But why is that important to the Bengals? Because the Bengals have only had in this past season 17 sacks, right? J.J. Watt has been the bane of the Bengals' existence for a while. Since the Andy Dalton years, you talk about him being a part of that 2011 draft class. You talk about him being the bane of the existence for the Bengals because in those games that we played them in the playoffs, he was very instrumental in making sure we didn't beat the Texans, especially when he, I think, intercepted one of Andy Dalton's passes and took it back. Do I think that he would actually sign with the Bengals or that we should go after him? I think that they may make a phone call. Do I think that it's realistically going to happen? No. And the reason that I say that is with him being 32 years old, that is an older direction. I think that they're looking for some young guys to kind of inject in this nucleus. We already have Khalid Kareem. We already have Carl Lawson. Potentially, we'll see how free agency plays out. We also have Sam Hubbard. Yes, you could inject him as a veteran into this locker room, but you have to think at this point in his career, it just really wouldn't make sense to join a team that's kind of essentially rebuilding to just be a vet guy that will not really get the meaningful snaps in terms of playing for a contender, right? Like, I think that teams that would be on his radar would be San Francisco. You talk about Tampa Bay. Like, those are the teams for me that I think of when I would think about J.J. Watt being this old. And obviously in the twilight of his career, he probably would be looking elsewhere. That would make more sense. He could go to the Browns. He could go to the Ravens. There's a lot of teams that are considered quote unquote contenders that he could go to. And that's just not the stop there. You also talk about Green Bay. I think that that's a possibility with him being from Wisconsin. I think the biggest possibility, though, is that he could potentially think about taking less money to go to Pittsburgh. But the thing with Pittsburgh is they don't have any money. So he may want to play with his brother, but they may not have enough money to keep him or to get him or draw him there. So for me, I think that it's intriguing. I would love to see if they took a flyer on him. Obviously, I wouldn't be upset about that. But the fact that this is going to be a guy that's in the twilight of his career, I'm not so sure it would align with what we're trying to do and what he's trying to do. Now, obviously, he came from a defensive system that may work, and obviously we only had 17 sacks. So, yeah, they probably will try to make a call, but it's a two-way street, right? You have to see what's out there, what he's going to be willing to play for, what his actual purpose is. For him to walk away from the Houston Texans, who are literally drafting or would have been drafting 2 more spots higher than us, I just don't think he would go to our team. And that's not to say that the ceiling for our team is low, because we're not a scrub team or anything like that, but we're not competing for a Super Bowl next season, if that makes sense. So not that we won't be a good team, not that we won't be a competitive team, but we're still a team in progress. And when you get guys that are veterans, they really don't want to stick around for stuff like that, and they want to win now. So Pittsburgh, maybe, I don't know. You guys know how I feel about Pittsburgh, but they obviously had a winning record last season. Adding him and giving him the possibility to play with his brother, that's cool. I'm not so sure that they're a championship contender, though, right? Because if Ben falls off a cliff, which it looked like he did in the playoffs, I'm not so sure that that would be an ideal spot for JJ to compete. So we'll have to see where that ends up being. His brother's already recruited him, but you also have to think about family and stuff like that. They probably have had dreams of all of the Watt brothers playing together. I believe their brother is also on the Steelers as well. So that could be a reason why they or he would think about it, right? So outside of that, let's talk about the other things. So just to wrap that up, do I think that the Bengals would sign TJ Watt? No, I don't think that he's going to be a guy I think they may give him a call just to see what it is, but I don't think both sides will come to an agreement, if that makes sense. And from his side to our side, I don't know if it's going to be more so us wanting him versus him wanting to play with us. So let's move on to the Ring of Honor. So obviously you guys saw a lot of the leaked images out there in terms of the Bengals Ring of Honor. And if you haven't, please be sure to look them up. I think they have them on CincyJungle.com. But there was a lot of stir that was caused a couple days ago when the Bengals social media team unknowingly revealed that there was a potential Ring of Honor, right? And what it was they put a tweet out that was like, hey, it's another snow day. Can't wait until September, I think was the caption or something like that. Basically saying that they wanted to get into next season as soon as possible, especially with all the snow that was going on. But one of the guys on Twitter actually ended up zooming in and seeing certain names that kind of dropped the hint, whatever, that the Bengals may be planning a Ring of Honor. And I honestly, you guys already know, I feel like we've always needed to establish culture and honor our own, especially the way that the national media has not done it. And, I made Ken Riley as the biggest part of this thumbnail, and I think that it's deservingly so. And I don't think it's a coincidence with the timing that they're considering this. I think that Ken Riley deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be honored. The fact that they didn't even speak on his memoriam, don't even get me started on that. You guys saw that I just started hurling out tweets because not only did he play for my favorite football team, he also played and coached at my alma mater. So I have a huge connection to Ken Riley in my own way because he was a Rattler. I'm a Rattler. He was a Bengal. I'm a Bengals fan. So that was an interview, and I've never said this before. That was an interview that I was really looking forward to having. Combining both of those worlds because I have been a Rattler on the Hill. I would love to hear what his thoughts were from FAMU back in the day. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't able to have that. But hopefully, we can make something happen with that. But the one thing that I'll say is this: when you talk about his career, you look at his career. This was a guy that started out as a quarterback. Never played the cornerback position before, was drafted, had to change positions because that's just the way that era kind of was back then. Learns how to play the position, ends up top 5 all-time in interceptions in an era where they never threw the ball like that. You're probably throwing it 18 to 20 times a game. That's it. We had a game last year where Joe Burrow he had 60 pass attempts, right? So the fact that he was never looked at in that way was just kind of weird. He was never nominated or anything like that. Like it was a shame. We wanted him to get into the Hall of Fame, and it just didn't happen. The second slap in the face was they showed all of the Bengals that passed. We all know that he passed in July. They did not even acknowledge him there. And to me, the disrespect was just crazy. I feel like the Bengals felt the same way when it's come to Ken Riley, when it's come to Ken Anderson. They can't even get Chad, from what I've heard from my sources, they can't even get them to consider Chad or Corey Dillon at all. And for me, what it comes down to is, and this is no offense to like the media or anybody that works in media, this is not about that. The media, the national media, they're always concerned about big market teams. And all of these small market teams, all these great players that play for small market teams, never get the notoriety because of that. Like, it's okay for me for them to focus on that stuff during the season, but when it comes to people's careers, like I'm okay with the Bengals not having, being talked about on SportsCenter all day. I'm good with that. That's fine. But when it comes to guys that are really Hall of Famers, and because they didn't play in the New Yorks, because they didn't play in the LAs, the Chicagos, they aren't considered, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, that part of it has to be changed some way. Like, what I don't understand is how, and maybe I need to research this a little bit more. Obviously, I know the Pro Football Hall of Fame committee is made up of the media for the most part. They need to get actual players. There needs to be another committee of actual players who were on the field who had to play against these guys. Because I guarantee if you get anyone from their era that can talk about these guys, they'll tell you about Ken Riley. They'll tell you about Ken Anderson. They'll tell you about other guys like Fred Taylor. I went off talking about Fred Taylor. There's no reason that these guys shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Chad Johnson led the AFC, I don't know how many consecutive years in receiving yards. And he can't even get looked at. I'm not saying that he should just be a first ballot Hall of Famer or anything. He should be looked at. Corey Dillon, this guy's in the record books, had records when it comes to 278 yards. Obviously, that was beat by Jamal Lewis and other guys in years after. But Corey Dillon was a special running back. Like, for him not to even get consideration, but Terrell Davis to be inside of the Hall of Fame is just ridiculous. And that's just a whole other topic. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but this is why. And someone is asking, Anthony Munoz. Yes, of course I know Anthony Munoz. He's our only Hall of Famer. But this is why Willie Anderson is another. There's no reason why Willie Anderson shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I'm still upset about that. There is no reason that he shouldn't have been inducted. Come on, bro. Willie Anderson was like one of the best right tackles of that generation. When you talk about the early 2000s, he came in the 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s, because these media people, like with offensive line, it's already tough, right? Because there aren't any stats and stuff like that for offensive linemen. So what should you do? You should go and look at the people that were edge rushers that you currently have in the Hall of Fame and what they did against them. Most of them didn't do anything against Willie Anderson. That means he should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, if this man wasn't giving up sacks like that, that is why he should be in the Hall of Fame. And, it even happened to my man on the Jags, Tony Boselli. Like, he also wasn't let in. And it's just small market bias. It's big meat. Like, if you didn't play in a big market, you can't get in. And that's stupid. Players can't control where they play at. They can't. Like, there's a lot of players for the Bengals that were very good in the NFL. For us to only have one Hall of Famer is ridiculous. I don't even know how many Jaguars are in the Hall of Fame. It should be more. And I'm just saying Jaguars because they're a small market team too. But, you would just think, even when it comes to Tampa Bay, right? Like, Tampa Bay just won the Super Bowl. Nobody was talking about how good this team was before Tom Brady went there, right? No one. They've had talent for years. You talk about Mike Evans, you talk about Chris Godwin. Like, unless you actually played fantasy football, you didn't know how good that team was. But people who actually pay attention and are fans of the team, they knew that they had a good team. And so it's unfair to say, like, let's just say 20 years from now, they don't put Mike Evans in the Hall of Fame because he didn't play in a big market. Like, is just insanity. But back to my original point, the Ring of Honor, they leaked that the Bengals have been looking at a potential Ring of Honor, which makes sense. I think it was all spurred on by the Ken Riley thing, which obviously they reported on that afterwards with their disgust, like we all were disgusted. But this is dope, man. Like, I really am happy to see them starting potentially a Ring of Honor because it's just much needed, even if it's just naming and showing certain players there. That's cool. I'm cool with that. Ken Riley, and it's supposed to be the 40th anniversary, I think I heard, of that first Super Bowl appearance. I don't know if it's solely going to be those guys. That would be dope for them to start it with that. Just establish that culture, right? Establish the culture. I get why Mike Brown, didn't want to put the players above the team. But at the end of the day, the way that these Bengals fans connect with this team, it's the players. Look at the guys that I have in the background here. AJ Green, Jeff Blake, Khalid Kareem, my guy, Von Bell, a Cincinnati legend, Vontez Burfict, Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, like Peter Warrick. Like, yeah, Peter Warrick might not have had an amazing career. I love Peter Warrick, though. James Brooks, Corey Dillon, Rudy Johnson. Like, there's names that you can say to Bengals fans that are going to elicit a certain emotion, a certain connection, a certain memory with this team. And even though we'll always be a Bengals fans and love the stripes, we love the players. We love the players. You know, TJ Houshmandzadeh, anybody that I've had on here, like, bro, legends. Cedric Benson, RIP. Like, bro, there's certain feelings that you're going to get when you had that. T.O. is a Bengal. Like, T.O. was a Bengal. Like, imagine that was one of the happiest moments in my life. And I know you're like, hey, so we only won, 4 games. It was a dream come true for me because T.O. was one of my favorite receivers. So to see him put on a Bengals jersey was that was nuts to me. That was nuts. So, certain people you're always going to look at as Bengals no matter what, and you're going to appreciate them. And just giving the dedication to their name, bringing them back, establishing that culture, I think is vital for this team moving forward for sure. You guys will know I've always talked about the culture in terms of that. So the other thing that I wanted to get into is today it was also announced that the Bengals just hired a new running back coach by the name of Justin Hill. And I'm just going to read some things here just on his background. He came from Tulsa. He's a running backs coach. I think he's only about 32 years old, so he's still a young coach. He was in his 6th season at the University of Tulsa, and he's done some pretty good things. He's had running backs total 4,700-yard games, and he's had other games where about 5 of them where they actually ran for 200 or more yards. He's just a guy that seems to have some great experience. He, I believe, was a running back himself. He graduated from Rice University, and he ended up having to suffer. He suffered through like some injuries and stuff like that, and he moved from the linebacker position to running back. And once he moved to running back, he just started kind of taking off as a true freshman, and then he just decided to kind of move into coaching. And it seems like he's done pretty good. It looks like he played in Rice in 2011. So he's still a young guy. Played in a bowl game in 2008. He's also coached in several bowl games. So he used to also coach at Baylor 2012, 2013, 2014. Then he went to Tulsa. So he's got a pretty extensive background. And it's good to see. It's mostly been collegiate. This is probably his first time getting an NFL job. But he's replacing Jamal Singleton. And the other things that they've done, they promoted Troy Walters to wide receiver coach. I know a lot of people were wondering whether Zach Taylor's brother, Press, was going to join. And then there are just some other moves there. But from what I can see about this guy, it seems like he would be a decent coach to have on the roster. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But outside of that, this has just been a video to just kind of get my thoughts on everything kind of going on right now. And I really just wonder, and I'm looking forward to certain things like the Ring of Honor. Also looking forward to see if the Bengals are going to look into possibly signing J.J. Watt. Like I said, I doubt it. But excited about the running back coach hire, excited about the Ring of Honor. I really just want to see what they're going to do. So one day we'll probably have to have on some of these Bengals legends, and I've already had some on, and future legends and past legends. But we'll start to talk about more stuff, and I'll try to drop some of these nuggets and tidbits and things like that. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for supporting. Like I said, if you're here, you're new here, please feel free to subscribe. If you've been here from the long haul, I appreciate you, my day ones, all of that. Please check out the links in the description. And as usual, I will leave you guys with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
He gave his rookie-laden Bengals a high mark as they passed from the kindergarten of preseason to the first grade of regular league play.
Cincinnati's best came in the first quarter, the first time they had the ball. Quarterback Dewey Warren and fullback Tom Smiley combined for Cincinnati's first pass completion.
Bengal founder Paul Brown fashioned this novel design, as new to the game today as the forward pass was a century ago.
Montana dragged down at the 31-yard line.
In 1996, the Bengals finished strong and finished right.
Touchdown!
Yes! You tell you what, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. We got a bow to Corey Dillon.
Bulldog from the 32 with Mixon in the backfield. It's Dalton out to Mixon. He's got some room.
It's Mixon diving up and over.
We're gonna hammer home competition, preparation, okay, and diligence in everything we do.
It's a new year, same old question. How do you stop 85?
They're looking down the field to the home run ball. It's full.